Okay, thanks a lot, and thanks for coming out. What a beautiful night. Again, I'm Mike Gonzalez from Cap KVU TV, the ABC affiliate in town, and we cover Kennewick, Walla Walla, this entire DMA, and Yakima. So I'm the news director out there and also the evening anchor. So I wear a lot of hats, but we certainly cover the issues really closely. And you know, Richland is a city where something is always happening, and it's an important city with ties to Hanford. Massive development, you know, just economically driven, and obviously a great city to live in. So it's great to see everybody come out and really be supportive. So just to reiterate what Kay said, each candidate may make a 1.5-minute opening statement. We'll then move on to the question and answer period with a 1.5 time limit on responses. All candidates will answer the same questions, alternating who goes first. So basically we'll start all the way on my right. They'll be first, then you'll go first, and you know, as you can see, we have prepared questions, but we're also taking written questions from the audience. Cards for questions will have been given to the audience. There's volunteers that you can give them to, so if you've got a question that you really want answered, just hold up your card and a league member is going to collect it. Be sure to mark which race the question is for, because we've got 4 separate races today, so, and a lot of time limits, so do try to do that in a timely fashion. Candidates, I would point out that our timer, again, is over here. She's going to hold up that sign with 15 seconds left. Then the stop sign, you're going to need to, you don't need to stop in mid-sentence, you know, finish your thought. I'm not going to go, stop. We certainly want to hear your full response, but don't make it a minute if you can. So let's begin by introducing the candidates running for Richland City Council Position 1, which is a 4-year term. They are to my right and your left, Rhoda Williams, Kaylin Finn, Jessica Monterey, and Bob Thompson. And for simplicity's sakes, the candidates are seated, will be addressed in the order which they filed for the office. So let's begin with our opening statements. Ms. Williams.
Hello, everyone. Thank you for coming out tonight, and thank you, League of Women voters, for having us all.
Okay.
Oh, is that it?
No, go ahead.
Oh.
I thought you stopped.
No, I was just swallowing. I'm honored to be here. My name is Rhoda Williams. I'm running for City Council Position 1. I'm a small business owner of Miss Rhoda's Wine Garden. I have 3 important oh, my time is running out. I have 3 important things that I would like to talk about. One is safety. It is important that all neighborhoods have adequate lighting. Another example is school zoning should have large flashing lights to indicate the school zone. 2, development. I'm interested in supporting small businesses in our community as I have been supported. 3, communication. I'm a good listener, and I feel that it is important that we have a positive dialogue between council and Richland residents. Okay, I'm finishing, I'm wrapping up. Thank you. Please vote for me, Rhoda Williams, City Council, Position 1.
Thank you, Ms. Williams. Mr. Finn.
All right. So I'd like to thank the League of Women Voters for having us all here today. I'd like to thank the other candidates for sitting at this table with me. Also, I'd like to thank the sun for showing up and bringing us some warmth to enjoy. I'm Kaylin Finn. I'm from Richland. I'm not new to this community. This community was part of my childhood, was part of my teen years, and now I'm an adult on this stage just blocks from where I was born and where I graduated from high school. I left only long enough to attend Central Washington University to get my degree in political science, and it was the love of my community, and that's ultimately what drove me to run for city council. Folks, we need a council that listens, that really hears you and your concerns. This is an important election, and that's because the Richland City Council is poised to begin working on its new 10-year comprehensive plan. I don't know about you, but I don't want more of the same for the next 10 years. I want to be your voice at the table. Together, we can change the course of Richland's future, because in today's political climate, it's more important that all levels of government are able to represent the will of the people, and I believe, more importantly, listen. But not just listen with empathy and understanding. And because of this, I believe fresh faces, new ideas, and a new vision are incredibly important. And that's why I'm choosing to run for City Council, position 1. And together, let's make your voices heard. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Finn. Mrs. Monterey.
Good afternoon, everybody, and thank you for being here, and thank you to the League of Women Voters for taking the time to put this together. My name is Jess Monterey, and I'm running for Richland City Council, position 1. I made the decision to run for City Council here in Richland because I feel that Richland residents deserve to have City Council members who are actively listening to their concerns and diligently engaging the community so that everybody is a part of the decisions that are made at the City Council level. I am an immigration paralegal by trade and a mom. I have 2 little girls, and they are what drove me to move to Richland. I wanted to leave. I was living in the Mid-Atlantic, and I wanted to leave and bring them somewhere where I can raise my girls, and I have no doubt about the decision that I made to move here. However, I would really appreciate your vote and your support so that you have an ally at the table, and so that you are always guaranteed a part in the process for the decisions that are made at the Richland City Council. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Thompson.
Well, again, thank you, League of Women Voters. It's not very often we have an opportunity to have a forum like this where we share eyes. I'm born and raised in Richland, graduated from Richland High in '74, Washington State '78, and then Willamette University Law School in '82. I am proud to be a Richland individual, and I'm not ashamed of anything that Richland has done in its past. I think a lot of people think that we are not everything we could be, and perhaps we could be more. But I'm not ashamed of who we are. And I sometimes take things personally when they suggest that we don't listen. We listen. The question is whether or not people actually have a voice and whether they come to council. I look at the people that are running in position 1, and not too many of them ever actually made a council meeting, and that always kind of surprises me. While I've been the representative for the city of Richland, I created something called the Energy Community Alliance, where all the nuclear cities got together to talk to the Department of Energy and try to make coherent policy decisions. It's one of those kind of things that I'm very proud of because it's given Richland an opportunity at the Department of Energy to have a voice. And why is that important? It's important because that's where most of our disposable income comes from, whether it's P&L or it's out at the site on cleanup. The bottom line on this, we are at a threshold in our community on which way we want to go. I'd really believe that, and so I agree with a lot of the fellow members here. The question is, what are we? I can tell you what I don't believe. I don't think we should be a sanctuary city. I don't think we should support retail marijuana sales, and I don't believe in a $15 minimum wage because I think it's counterproductive to the individuals who it's intended to benefit.
Thank you. All right, we'll start with our questions. Ms. Williams, we'll start with you. This is a question about the recent vote to increase the car tab license fee to help pay for the Dupertail Bridge plus some road maintenance in the city. Do you think that this fee was necessary? If not, what were the alternatives, and would you have voted for it or not?
I believe, yes, the $20 fee was important because the money that we received for the Dupertail Bridge was not 100%. And all of the $20 increase is not for the cover of us paying for the bridge. Only $10 of that $20 go to the bridge, and the other $10 go to the roads. So yes, I would have voted for it because I want to see traffic diverted. I want to see my city grow. And I think it's important that we help. Thank you.
Mr. Finn.
Okay, so was it necessary? Is I believe that what you said?
Yeah, that was one of the aspects of it.
So The TBD district it's an interesting thing. It's not that I don't necessarily agree or disagree, it's how it was done. I think that if we're going to place the burden and the tax on the Richland residents, and even the most vulnerable among us, I know there's some of us that have static incomes, elderly, etc. Anytime we're going to make a decision that's going to impact our most vulnerable, I think it's not a decision that we make lightly. And I think it's a decision that we look at every single avenue before we do it. And I think in this case, the TBD district was put in place to encompass all of the Richland city limits, specifically so only 7 people could have a say in the matter, instead of all of us having a say in the matter. And I think one of the most important things to remember is that when the Richland city shops were built on the other side of the river, the city's always been looking for a way to have a direct line to those city shops. And with the bridge and the bridge project and the plan, that's the direct line. However, since 93 or 94, I believe, the city could have put provisions in place to be saving money for the bridge rather than straddling $4 million on the backs of Richland residents. So, thank you.
Thank you. Ms. Monterey.
Could you repeat the question one more
Sure
time,
thing.
please?
This question is about the recent vote to increase the car tab license fee to help pay for the Dupertail Bridge plus some road maintenance in the city. Do you think this fee was necessary? If not, what do you think were the viable alternatives, and would you have voted for it or not?
So the first question is whether or not the fee was necessary, and it's my understanding that it was, but it's also my understanding that there are still other options available where that money can come from to help fund the bridge. I know that in the days that I've spent talking to voters when I've been out door knocking, a lot of people do have concerns about repairs to some of the roads and having better paved roads in the area, and decreasing traffic that has come about due to recent developments and newer developments in Richland. But I'm going to echo a little bit of what Kaylin said. In my conversation with Richland voters, part of the vast majority of their frustration is that they kind of feel like this decision was forced upon them, and that they weren't ever really given an opportunity to have other options explained to them or to vote on other options. And I really think that the issue with the bridge and the car tab tax is more of a breakdown of communication and a lack of engagement, and less about the amount. While I understand that, especially if you're living on a fixed income, or somebody like myself, I'm a single mom, every once in a while, every penny counts, and so it does make a difference to a lot of people. Whether or not I would have voted, I think it would have depended on what other options were available. But I do think that this really boils down to a breakdown of communication and a lack of engagement with the community, and it's kind of the underlying issue for a lot of the decisions that are made with Richland City Council.
Thank you. And I've been told to discourage you guys from clapping after a particular candidate, so I know it's tough, but we don't want to show any favoritism, so thank you. Mr. Thompson.
Yeah, it's a math question, right? So a lot of voices that I hear now are kind of Johnny-come-latelys to the scene. This is a project that's been going on for 10 years. Count them, 10 years. City actively involved citizenry on Dupertail and various other places in regard to this. You don't build a bridge that costs $38 million overnight. You have to go out and get funding for that bridge. So we got federal, state dollars, and it mounted up to about 34 of the $38 million. And unfortunately, the Washington legislature, probably because of political reasons on our representatives who voted against the car tax or that gas tax, we were denied that additional $4 million. And so I think there's been a little bit of a push to divide Richland to north and south and east and west. And I resent that too now that I think about it, because we're all one community and we all are successful if we work together. I look at Queensgate. Queensgate is a great thing because you get sales tax. People don't understand that cities only get their revenue from property tax and sales tax. By having people show up there, that lessens your property tax. That's a good idea. Had people expressed their concerns, maybe we would have done something different. I don't think so, because we explored the fixed income questions. We explored the idea of a toll booth. Couldn't do that. The costs were too high. The big question you have to face is, if you ignore the money you have and you don't have the ability to fund the bridge, that funding source will dry up. And if the city ever needs money again, either from the federal government or from state government for grants and loans, you're not going to get it because you didn't take what you had. And that's the truth, and that's why the city council made a very informed decision to do the right thing. Nobody likes taxes and fees, but you can't lose that kind of money and deny citizens the opportunity to have a full transportation program in the city of Richland.
All right, thank you. Question 2, we'll start with Mr. Finn. In light of the response of 173 mayors representing 49 million Americans pledging to uphold the Paris Agreement at the municipal level, if elected to the City Council, what suggestions do you have for the City of Richland to encourage environmental responsibility?
That's a great question. If elected on the council, I mean, that's a big one. Environmental responsibility is our future. And I think being from Richland, we've got great resources at hand. We got P&L right in our back door, who's studying environmental studies and environmental projects right now. And I think the Paris Agreement, and I agree with all those other mayors and everybody that stood up for the Paris Agreement, because I think that's something that, being of a younger generation, I look to what is our world going to be like when I'm older? And I hope that's something that everybody kind of takes into consideration. And I think that's important for cities, because ultimately cities and city council, that's what directly impacts you. A lot of stuff can happen at the state level, a lot of stuff can happen at the national level, but it's the things that happen at the city and local level that is what is a direct impact to all of us. And if we're all paying attention, if we've all got our eyes on the horizon in terms of environmental sustainability and environmental responsibility, I think that's a benefit. So, thank you.
Thank you. Ms. Monterey.
I think that it is, we live here in Richland, we reside here, we work here, our children grow up here, and we hope that they'll stay or come back, stay nearby or come back, or at least that's what I would like for my girls. And I think that we do need to be responsible on a city level for how we care for our environment and be responsible for what sort of initiatives we help develop and implement that are environmentally responsible. There are several programs I think that could be expanded in Richland and that could be developed to help kind of reduce our footprint with the environment, and I stand by those. I think you said 173 mayors.
Yeah, 173 mayors.
Who stood by the Paris Accord. And I would love to see the same thing happen here in Richland. I would really like for us to make more of an effort to be environmentally responsible and maintain our city.
All right, thank you very much. Mr. Thompson.
So there's a word called virtue signaling out there nowadays. That means you want to feel good about what you do, whether it makes a difference or not. So I'll tell you in the real world what you do. We have 54 million gallons of nuclear waste out at the site. My efforts have been able to try to clean that up as quickly and efficiently and to make sure that the funding is available to do that. I've also initiated an effort to change the definition of high-level waste. What would that do for us? It would change the dynamics of cleanup. It would be faster and cheaper, and Richland could become the community it always wants to do. Just a word about that, because most people don't understand it. The United States is the only country in the world that bases what nuclear waste is on how it was created, not what it is today. Anybody knows about nuclear energy and half-lives, what was put in tanks many years ago isn't what is there today. You can expand and clean things up much faster by making the definition of nuclear waste make sense. The Paris Accord, I read it, and this is the problem I have with sometimes my liberal friends. The Paris Accord would increase electrical rates on people that are least fortunate to pay it. It's, power is the inelastic curve, right? I mean, it's kind of a math question. And so if you start thinking about it a little bit, everybody has to have a certain amount of power. Everybody has to pay for that power. So why would you want to raise people's electrical rates on the very people that can't afford it? That always kind of astounds me. That's called, it's just not rocket science. So think when you make a decision on what you're going to support and what you don't. Because if you're just taking money and throwing it up in the air and hurting the very people that you're trying to help, you're doing a disservice to your population.
Thank you. Ms. Williams.
Well, I'm not really well versed in the natural resources, but from a common sense place, I would say that we need to focus on natural resources and preserving it, because we don't want to push out. Anyway, I just think that we should consider preserving natural resources. It's important.
Thank you very much. We'll move on to question 3. We'll start with Ms. Monterey. What do you consider to be the single most critical issue facing Richland today? And if elected, how will you deal with that issue?
In my conversation with Richland voters, that would be the Duportail Bridge and the tax, it seems. I think a lot of people are frustrated with this, and I responded to that question already. If given the opportunity, I would just like to make sure and ensure that we have explored all the options for that. However, again, because I firmly believe that that really comes down to a lack of communication and a lack of diligent engagement with our community and not involving them enough in the process, that's really something I want to do. I want to bring Richland residents to the table and make sure that they're aware of what the decisions that are being made, when are the meetings for public comment, when are the meetings when they're going to discuss some of what's happening, so that everybody knows that they're welcome and that their voices matter and that they have a part in our decisions, because these decisions affect every single one of us every single day.
Thank you. Mr. Thompson.
So I think your question is, what is the big concern that I have out there in our community?
Yep.
Yeah, let me address a couple of things. Richland's probably the most transparent community, clearly in the Tri-Cities, maybe in the state of Washington. In regards to the decisions that are made, we send out your utility bills and we put flyers in each one of those bills and kind of tell you what's going on. We've got a website. We reach out to the community aspect of places, the neighborhoods that are going to be impacted when we make decisions. So I think we do a pretty darn good job, but some people just don't want to pay attention, and you can't really do much about that. The biggest concern I have for our community, and frankly, the United States, is people don't think anymore. There's something called critical thinking. The idea when somebody says something, they may have an internal motive for why they say it. We seem to be able to lack the ability to discern when people are BSing you. And I don't know what happened. I don't know if we dumb people down, or all I'm suggesting is when you go out and have a conversation with somebody, and when you have a conversation with your children, and they say something to you, why don't you push back and have them justify their opinion, or justify the opinion that they've heard? Because a lot of it is just so much malarkey, and we've lost that as a skill. I'm an attorney, so I come by this naturally, I suppose. But when I look at decisions that cities make, the concern I have is people haven't thought it all the way through, and they want to do what they think is best. But when you pull the string 10 years down the road, what the hell happened? That's my concern. Start to think again.
Thank you. Ms. Williams.
Would you repeat the question, please?
Sure thing. What do you consider to be the single most critical issue facing the city of Richland today? And if elected, how will you deal with that issue?
I think traffic planning, traffic congestions, community safety, and communicating with a dialogue with Richland residents. How I would handle that is, one thing, communication, I think, is my biggest point, is that we need to communicate openly and tell the people up front so that they have clarity on why the council make decisions so they can be well informed. And so that's how we do it. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Finn.
All right, so great question. So in talking with people that I've met and, talking with some of you at your doors, I've come to realize, and it's also one of my biggest issues as well, is the bridge. It's ultimately what caused me to throw my hat into the ring. So when I was reviewing the 2015 Richland Community Survey, a majority of Richland residents and community members stated that they didn't want additional taxes. It's not something they were looking for. It's not something they wanted, and so it's a little odd to me that that's what they ended up with the bridge. And in terms of communication on the bridge, I don't feel, because I was looking and I was out there trying to see, and I don't feel that there was, there was the usual information put in the usual places. And me, a bit of a tech guru, the website's a little hard to navigate. And I think that's some of our issues, and I think those are easily fixed. We can fix the communication issues. We can fix we can get the information to you easier. But really, in listening, it's that frustration, and I feel it because I felt it too. You go to your council meetings, and you want to be heard, and ultimately, I don't think nobody wants to be talked down to. I think they want to be heard and listened to with empathy, and that's what hopefully we can return to the council. So, thank you.
All right, thank you, Mr. Finn. We'll move on to question number 4. This is from the audience. Mr. Thompson, we'll start with you. If a vote for Richland comes up to make us a sanctuary city, how would you vote and why?
I would vote no, and the reason why, it violates federal law. I don't know if anybody seems to pay attention out there, but the world's complicated and interconnected. Most of our disposable income are federal dollars that come into the Hanford site and to Pacific Northwest Labs. Every year, those funds are in jeopardy when Congress has an opportunity to pass. And, you have a conservative agenda being promulgated in the Department of Energy, and you have an Attorney General, Jeff Sessions, who pushes back on certain things. One of them are sanctuary cities. I don't think it makes sense to violate the law. We have one law, we don't have 9 laws. And I think we do a disservice to the idea of law. When we get to choose what laws we obey and which ones we ignore, what we're really doing is telling the justice system and government to go to hell. And I think you can do that, and you can have a revolution, or you can win through the ballot box and make those changes. And maybe that's what if that's what the city wants to do, that's a vote that the city can take, right? I just don't think that benefits the city of Richland. And I think that when I look around, I think that there are others on the dais with me today that would disagree with that point of view. And they hold those opinions honestly. I just think it's a terrible idea.
Thank you. Ms. Williams.
I'm going to pass on this question because I'm not informed, and so I really want to speak from facts when I speak, so I'll pass.
Okay, thank you. Mr. Finn.
Okay, so another great question. Sanctuary city. I know that there's a large portion of people that wanted an inclusivity statement, and that's not necessarily going as far as a sanctuary city, but truthfully, I don't see an issue with that, because really, we're a community. I mean, I grew up here. This community raised me, and it's the cultures and the backgrounds and the demographics here that are most important. And I feel for people when they come and say that they don't feel included or they don't feel safe because of something. And if we can do something that can help our members of our community feel safer, feel more included, I think that's beautiful. And I can't say anything against that. I think the issue is the fear behind the sanctuary city is you get stuff taken away if you don't play the game. And I think that's wrong, because I think sometimes bravery is more important. And it does take a little bit. It takes a little bit to stand up and say no. And I think that's where you see in these other cities that they're standing up and they're saying, look, this is how we're going to choose to treat our own, irregardless of what you tell us or what you feel. And I think there's a bravery to that. And I think a lot of the ways, I think in terms of Benton County, and there's other candidates here who work more closely with this, but I think that we've already kind of skirted on being called a sanctuary city with how we cooperate with ICE. So, thank you.
Mr. Friend, thanks so much. Ms. Monterey.
So the vision statement of the Richland City Council for the City of Richland includes a phrase that says safe and family-friendly place. And when you have communities of people, be they as small as they may be, that are afraid to leave their homes, afraid to drive their children to school, afraid to go to a grocery store. These are things that we do every single day without fear, and all they are asking is for their city to stand behind them. I don't see a problem with that at all. I have gone to city council meetings, and this is how I became involved with Richland City Council on behalf of this inclusivity resolution. And I think that it's important that we take into consideration that we do bring in communities, diverse communities of people. I myself have met people from the Middle East and from Cuba and from Venezuela and from different countries. And our job as a city is to foster a safe environment for our residents to live in. A place where these are people who contribute to this economy, contribute to this community, whose children go to school here, who work in our areas. And we have to foster, like our vision statement says, a safe and family-friendly environment, regardless of their immigration status ever. It's a federal government job to take care of their immigration status, not a city council job.
All right, that was the final question. There is not going to be a closing statement, right, Kay? I just wanted to make that clear. There won't be a closing statement. So now you guys can go ahead and give all these candidates a round of applause. Again, Rhoda Williams, Kaylin Finn, Jess Monterey, and Bob Thompson. Thank you, everybody. Wonderful job.
Thanks.